Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, Sword and Shield, and Scarlet and Violet. These are the main formats we've seen Draft League played in. Despite these older generations hitting their peaks years ago, their Draft League formats have never died off. In fact, it's the opposite. There are multiple tournaments held throughout the year that feature prior generations of draft as their format, such as the Draft Premier League and Smogon's draft tournaments. I typically do my best to participate in as many Smogon draft tournaments throughout the year as I can, as longtime viewers of the channel know. However, by far the format I am worst at out of all the generations is Gen 6. Despite it being the first generation of draft, it was not my first. Because I didn't start playing until Generation 7, all of my experience in ORAS was hindsight, so I was never able to get a true grasp on its metagame. In last year's Smogon tournament, I was able to make it out of brackets, but lost pretty convincingly in top 128 to a solid player in Toxic. This year, our goal is simple. Make it farther than last year's tournament. Now, this is easier said than done, but I think we may have the team to do it. Oh, and really quick, if you do enjoy today's video and enjoy Draft League content in general, hi, my name is OG Albina, and I make a ton of Draft League content each and every week. If you would consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel, I'd appreciate it a ton. It really helps a smaller creator like myself out, and makes our end of the year goal of 5k subs a lot more possible. With that being said, onto the draft. In our draft pool, we ended up stuck with a pretty sucky 6th pick out of 8. This meant no broken Mega Gardevoirs for us. But on the upside, it did mean that we got to pick our Pokemon pretty close together. When it came to my turn, I was torn between 2 Pokemon, Mega Lopunny and Latios. Latios was a tried and true staple I've used in ORAS a ton up to this point. Incredibly fast, strong, great coverage, and a great emergency defogger. However, I ended up going Lopunny. The speed tier was just too much to pass up on, and the normal fighting typing is an incredibly stab combo alongside Scrappy as an ability. Really only fat psychics threaten Lopunny with Rocky Helmets, and it can feel really unwallable with the proper support. Plus, having a Mega never really forced to run Protect due to fake out securing its speed tier when Mega evolving is always a plus side when drafting an ORAS. Round 2 comes along and Latios is still there? Thank goodness we went Lot first, but man, oh man, I never expected Lottie to make it back to me in my 2nd pick. It's great for all of the reasons we mentioned previously, but on top of that, it loves having Mega Lop on its team. What beats Latios? Typically Fatter Steels and Dark types. What does Mega Lopunny absolutely devour? You guessed it, Fatter Steels and Dark types. Latios also beats a lot of the prior mentioned Psychics that Lop doesn't love. Really the only thing they both struggle with is Fairies. Insert our round 3. Scizor. Scizor remedies this fairy problem perfectly, while taking on both Darks for Lottie and Psychics for Lopunny. With strong priority bullet punches, U-turn for a stab pivot move that chunks the entire meta, knockoff to remove items, Sword Stance to sweep, and Roost to stay healthy, this is the perfect pairing for Lottie and Lop available to this point. Heck, it can even defog, taking away any pressure from Latios to do so. Lottie also functions as a solid fire resist to back Scizor up. First half of the team is rounded out by channel and personal favorite, BBR Season 7 MVP, Crocodile. Crook functions in a myriad of roles here. He gives us a Dark type and a Psychic Killer for Lopunny, gives us a Ground type, which is always essential in draft, and finally gives us our first Stealth Rocker. Hazards are an integral part of Draft League, but especially ORAS. With limited good removal and no heavy duty boosts to be seen, games are often won and lost by rocks and spikes. Krug is about as reliable of a rocker as you can get. It also beats other rockers with taunt and its offenses. It also functions as a great pivot with Intim and a great choice scarfer as well. Starting out our 2nd half of the team, we have everyone's favorite Thunder Wave and Air Slash spam Mon, Togekiss. Togekiss is obviously a huge nuisance, getting a ton of flinch cheese and a ton of matchups with its Serene Grace ability. But it offers a ton more outside of that cheese potential. It functions as a great defogger, a fighting check which this team desperately needed, a dragon check which this team desperately needed, and another ground immunity which this team desperately needed. Heck, it can even pass wishes and be a cleric with Heal Bell if we need it to. Togekiss is a great team player and fills a myriad of defensive roles that we were missing. As mentioned before, spikes are an integral part of the ORAS draft metagame. Typically, you'd like to secure one early if at all possible. Unfortunately, that was not the case for us in this draft. In round 6, we needed to secure this ASAP, so we went Chestnut. I won't lie to you, Chestnut is far from an elite spiker, but it can get the job done if needed. Plus, the reason I went Chestnut over something like a Selgor was its defensive application for the draft. We are incredibly ground weak, only having 2 immunities and no resistances. Those immunities are just 1 Mold Breaker Excadrill or a prediction away from getting smoked, so getting a great ground answer in Chestnut was super valuable here. It also gives us a much more physically defensive presence alongside the specially defensive Togekiss pickup. 7th, we grabbed Big Jellicent. This is probably the picture perfect pickup for us here. It gives us a Water type and another Ice Resist, taking pressure off of Scizor. It also gives us a Ghost type that can function as a spin blocker, as well as another Fire Resist to take pressure off of Latios, and a Fighting check to take pressure off of Togekiss. It also really dismantles a lot of the fat psychics that Lop hates. It boasts reliable recovery and, well, recover, and can also spread a ton of status with Scald and Toxic, which is great. Having only 1 point left, most would simply shrug off this choice, but I think I found a true diamond in the rough, a great value pick in Chimecho. I won't spoil its tricks too much, as you'll see a few of them in this video, but it has an incredible utility move pool and is really only hampered by its lackluster stats. But trust me, you will be a Chimecho believer by the end of this video. That's the draft. Let's look at the battles. Alrighty guys, first up we have a game against Less Than 3, I think is how you say his name. He's got a whole bunch of numbers in there, but he's got a pretty terrifying squad. And something you'll notice too in these pool games, we have our 3 pool games first. 2 out of 3 of our opponents have Thunder T, and we don't particularly have a great defensive Thunder T matchup. I mean, most teams don't, but it really, really bullies down a lot of our fatter Pokemon and can really put in a lot of work against us. So we got to be very careful. We also have big threats like Kyurem Black. There's a regular Scizor, and I forget them on those left on the bench. I think there was maybe a Mega Gardevoir on the bench. I know there was a Mega Guard left on the bench against me in one of the games or something crazy, but there's no Mega in this matchup at the very least. Let's go ahead. We could jump into the team in particular that we're rocking out this week. You see, first up, we have a Megalopony right here. Really, really offensive set. And if you look at his team, I mean, absolutely phenomenal here. I mean, again, nothing resists fighting plus normal, but there being like no like super fat Fizdef Psychic to really threaten us is absolutely incredible. There's really not much that can, you know, avoid a 2-hit KO, especially if we can position a power-up punch on like a KO on something like Kyurem or, you know, on a force switch out or something of the sorts. We're really going to do a ton of damage, but it's also not needed. We do plenty of damage with high jump kick plus return. To be honest. Then we have an Akaberry Scizor. This is a great check to the likes of things like Kyurem Black. And honestly, really strong. If we can chip down that Thundurus and things like Blastoise potentially, we kind of just SD up and can win depending on what's later available later on. And just the combination of being like able to SD plus U-turn out on a Blastoise trying to come in and, you know, bait a Bullet Punch into us. We're going to do a lot of damage, which is obviously very, very clutch. Akaberry is going to be for, you know, hidden power fires from that Kyurem Black. Then we have a Yachi Berry Crocodile here with Earthquake, Stealth Rock, Knockoff, and Stone Edge here. I'm forgetting exactly what the Yachi was for. I don't think it was specifically for the Kyurem. I think there might have been something else. Maybe there was a different Mega on the bench that, again, I'm completely blanking on. This might have been Mega Manectric, to be completely honest, and I think I wanted to cover HP Ice slash the Kyurem, and it was one of those monsters that didn't really need an item. It's really here to just kind of get up rocks and disrupt and be just a general nuisance. We can go Adamant in this matchup and be very, very offensive and very strong. And also, Yachi lets us pivot in on Nidoqueen a lot easier, as its coverage is likely going to be dual stabs plus Ice Beam and then probably a Stealth Rock afterwards. So because of that, we can take an Earth Power, we resist Sludge Wave, and we can eat up even a Life Orb Ice Beam pretty darn comfortably, which is great. And really, it's here to get up rocks and just kind of be, you know, a big, big nuisance to our opponent's team. Then we have a choice Scarf Togekiss here with Air Slash, Dazzling Gleam, Defog, and Flamethrower in this matchup. Scarf is okay, flinching things down potentially. Outside of the Thunders, there is no flying resist, which I thought was really nice. I'm trying to remember exactly what we had the Scarf for. Again, the matchup's kind of eluding me at this point, but Strong Mon gets us a guaranteed Defog off if we really need to facilitate the rest of the squad. Then we have a Jellicent. We are Max Fizdef, Rocky Helmet. Pretty darn simple. It's here to check the likes of the Scizor especially, but we can pivot into the likes of Blastoise and even Pokemon like the Umbreon. We can beat pretty consistently 1v1 with a combination of taunts, scalds, and recovers. We should be able to whittle that thing down pretty darn easily. And then lastly, we have a choice Specs Latios. You see that there is no fairy on the other side, which means moves like Draco and Dragon Pulse are pretty darn free. You gotta be careful about Scizor, especially coming in and like wanting to potentially Pursuit Trap us. We do have Hidden Power to Fire to catch that, and then Psychic as our last move to kind of round it out. And yeah, that being said, let's go ahead and jump on into this one. Now, lead-wise, I wanted to lead Lopunny in this game always. I wanted to secure a Fake Out immediately, get my Mega off and get my speed off. And we see a lead Thundurus, which is obviously very scary, but I'm totally fine with taking the damage on this thing. Also scouting to see if maybe I can see an item. If he's willing to stay in, it kind of tips me off. Maybe he's like a Scarf variant or something similar. So we're going to Fake Out. We see he stays in, takes a clean 35, which is a lot of damage, and then we're going to see a Flinch and Leftovers, and this is incredible for me. This thing 100%, based on the damage that Fake Out did, it dies from here. It's not like a physically defensive Thundurus, which means it super gets smoked from return, and there's no normal resist outside of Scizor on this team, so I'm going to take that, because even if something like Scizor comes in, has to worry about either High Jump Kick or Fire Punch afterwards. And on top of that, it's really nice for my Latios to chip it down, because my Latios looks really strong here spamming Draco once that Scizor does go down. So we're just going to click return into the Nidoqueen. You see we do 50%, and in my head I'm like, I could take the roll, I could risk it, but really, is there ever a reason to risk this play? If I, for some reason, got max roll there and then min roll afterwards, and I lose my lop to some random superpower focus blast, I'm in a terrible position, and I really don't want to risk that. So I'm just going to pivot out in my Latios. I don't expect an Ice Beam. We do see a superpower come out. It is Life Orb, so now it is guaranteed in range of a return, and I'm not as worried about it. We see that it's Life Orb. I'm just going to click Dragon Pulse here. It is pretty free. I don't want to take the Draco drop right now, and we see that this Blastoise is actually completely super Assault Vest, max Spadef Assault Vest, as we are going to go ahead and pivot out into Togekiss, kind of scout and see what he wants to go for. Hindsight, a little bit of a tough play. In my head, I was thinking Dark Pulse for the likes of Latios plus Jellicent, but again, Ice Beam makes sense as well. Though at this point, I'm not super expecting him to want to be Dark Pulse as well, considering that. But we're going to see another Ice Beam. I'm going to get super low. Not going to get the flinch. 18% is also crazy. We're going to be immune to the Surf on this pivot in. And then we're going to take a Dark Pulse, only for 33%, but we do unfortunately get flinch. So this is a little bit of an iffy Pokemon for us to beat. We do thankfully not get flinched here, but really we're just a couple bad turns away from getting flinched out. So I'm going to take this as an opportunity to pivot into Lopunny finally. And again, I know that was kind of convoluted and we went through a bunch of different steps just to get to the point of getting in Lopunny, but I wanted to, one, make sure that Jellicent was healthy, and two, not have to come in harder on like a neutral Ice Beam or a neutral Surf, you know, because that'll do obviously a lot more. We're just going to go for a Fake Out here, and then we're just going to go ahead and pick this thing off a return. I could have obviously just like High Jump Kick, but I didn't want to risk it, and whatever came in, didn't really appreciate it. Again, Scizor can come in, but I'm not super worried about Scizor with the likes of Jellicent, and even things like Crocodile, Hidden Power Fire, Latios Revenging, or even my own Scizor to slow momentum and pivot out of it afterwards. So he's going to go out into Scizor right here as I pivot out into my Jellicent. We do see a Bug Bite come out, and that's completely fine with me. Just some free Rocky Helmet Chip. We're going to throw off a Scald, and if we can get this burn, we're going to be in a phenomenal position, making this thing a non-factor. Unfortunately, we don't get it, but he likes to U-turn out afterwards, showing that he's probably not some kind of SD set. Bug Bite U-turn is pretty interesting stab combination to run, too, like both of those move at the same time. But this thing is now at 51%, which means it dies to return into High Jump Kick, and I don't die to Bullet Punch from here, or even close to it, so that's obviously great. I'm going to go out into Crocodile right here as Thundurus is going to pivot out. We do see a Thunder Wave pop, and that is going to not affect us, which again is great. Now, if this is some kind of Hidden Power Ice or Grass Knot variant, we will live. We do die to a Focus Blast, but I partly wasn't super considering because I figured the moves were just more naturally a little bit better versus me. Unfortunately, he does have the Focus Blast. He's going to pick us off. Not a big deal, though. No rocks, but again, Crook isn't the most needed Pokemon in the world. We're going to go into our Latios, though, as a means of revenging this, and unfortunately, I'm going to drop a Draco. I'm going to miss. I'm going to get Thunder Waved, and after this, my Latios is basically useless. Now, Scizor is going to come out afterwards. It's going to take a Specs Draco, which does a lot, and thankfully we get a crit. Kind of tipped me off that this might have been Assault Vest, to be honest, but 100% sure. And then I just go ahead and throw off a Draco to sack this thing off, as I don't really want anything to take a knockoff. This takes a lot. This dies, obviously. This takes a lot and potentially dies to Bullet Punch afterwards. And my Togekiss, obviously, doesn't really deal with it well either, so just wanted to go from there, as we are going to see our Lop come out. Bullet Punch comes out, and this is kind of that position where I was like, okay, Power Up Punch is going to put me in a great position from here. So I am going to go ahead and Power Up Punch. And if you look at the rest of his team, everything on the squad is actually just completely O-code at +1. There's nothing that takes a hit from this Pokemon at +1 attack. Out comes Thundurus. I'm just going to return, pick that thing off, put myself in a great spot. As the Kyurem's going to come out next, it's going to reveal a Protect, which is pretty unfortunate. Thankfully, we are at 52, so we're not going to completely die from that. High Jump Kick comes out, we're going to knock out the Kyurem, and now out comes the Umbreon. And again, this is a little bit of a 50-50 in this position, right? Where this Umbreon can go ahead and Protect and take me out potentially, or it can attack me on a return and get me that way. He is going to Protect. Thankfully, I make the right call in going for a return here. And then I go for a High Jump Kick, and I once again miss. Really unfortunate turn of events to start this game right here, as I am going to go for a Dazzling Gleam on this Umbreon, as a Baton Pass does come out into the Nidoqueen. Again, a little bit unfortunate, but not the end of the world. I'm going to get into my Jellicent. As we see, this is a full physically offensive Nidoqueen, and then right here, I win. Now, I'm sure you're like, wait, what the hell happened right there? My opponent, I reached out to him on Discord. This is such a weird game, man. They left right here, and they DC'd. Completely DC'd. I turned off the timers. We got to about a minute, and I DM'd the guy. And I was like, hey, man, like, I gotta go. I'll give you a couple more minutes, but I'm gonna turn the timer back on if you aren't back soon. I turned it back on. He had 30 seconds. I was like, I really don't want to take this away from this guy and just get it on forfeit. I think I can still win from this position personally with SD Scizor, like pretty darn freely, especially after that chip on Umbreon. But I DM'd him and he said his internet went out, and I was like, hey, you want to connect on your phone, finish the game? And he said no. Turn it back on the timer, and I turned it back on, and we won. So really interesting way to start our tournament run. We got very unlucky. We played very inoptimally at times as well. Got very unlucky in this game though, and we're able to pull it back. And again, I know we won on timer right here because my opponent DC'd, but I really don't see a scenario in which we lost this game unless I super threw it. Despite all of the unluckiness early on, Lop was able to punch a big enough hole to where I think we would have been fine, to be honest. But I don't know. We'll see. Let's go into our second game. So our second game in pools comes along, and if we win, we're basically in. I think 2-1 pretty much secures that you make it onto the bracket stage of the tournament. Unfortunately, we're playing against Sablo, who is a very well-known ORAS player, very well-known draft league player in general, so he obviously knows his stuff. He's a very good ORAS player, much better than I, at least traditionally, throughout the, the course of draft league and its metagame history. So we definitely have our work cut out for us, and he has a terrifying team, honestly. We see a Drapion, Rotom Wash, Torn-T, Mega Diancie, Empoleon, and Garchomp. So lots of big problems to the team. Torn is incredibly obnoxious to the team that we have right here. We don't have a proper flying resist on this roster. So something like a more offensive Torn could be really problematic for us depending on how things end up going. So that's something we have to keep in mind. Mega Diancie is always a hidden power fire away from just smoking through our team after it kills Scizor. So again, got to be very careful about that. And then Garchomp is always a little bit scary. We are bringing Chestnut this time, but really Chestnut is the only stopgap we have to that thing. And it's not like Garchomp doesn't have the physical capability to break through something like Chestnut. So that's obviously very annoying. And then like the defensive core of like his double waters plus Drapion dealing with our Latios decently well makes this pretty darn obnoxious. But I will say, we can look at our first Pokemon and Mega Lop. Lop once again looks phenomenal. Again, there are the potentials of like Ruskin Helmet Chomp, which could be very annoying, but it's really only an Ice Punch away from dying, and then everything else is kind of to a KO. Again, Torn is never O-code, so we got to be careful about that thing, but if we can chip it down sufficiently, don't let it regen enough, we can always put ourselves in a position to where hopefully Diancie is picking a KO pretty darn consistently if we're getting in the right monster at the right times. You see we have Fake Out for Prio / securing our Mega Evolution, we have Return, High Jump Kick, and then Ice Punch really is just for a nuke on Garchomp. Return just does as much to something like Torn as Ice Punch does. The Ice Punch being 4 times effective on Garchomp and giving us an OHKO on it is really valuable because that's even less, turns of chip we have to take from potential Rocky Helmets, which I think is really clutch. Then we have our Latios right here. We're a Calm Mind variant this time with Draco, Calm Mind, Roost, and Thunderbolt with a Colbur Berry. Colbur Berry plus Calm Mind and Draco allows us to really push through things like Drapion. We can Calm Mind in its face and throw off a +1 boost to Draco pretty freely to KO that guy and not be super worried about it pursuit trapping us / knocking us off / beating us 1v1 a little bit easier. So I like that aspect. We're max. If we can eliminate Diancie or put in range of Thunderbolt and get lucky in a little speed tie, that's cool. But really, Draco Thunderbolt hits this entire team super hard outside of Dia. Like ridiculously hard. So I think that's a really clutch aspect of this. Then we have Big Scizor here, taking a page out of Gen 9's book and going AV. Obviously, we could run some kind of recovery, but I really like to Assault Vest in this matchup to pivot into Diancie because we can live Hidden Power Fire that way, but also take hits like random hits from like Mixed Chomp or Torn and things like that a little bit better. And even Pokemon like Empoleon, which offensively has a decent enough matchup against us with like a Grass Knot variant. So we are rocking with an AV set, Bullet Punch, Knockoff, Superpower, and U-Turn in this game. Superpower is obviously to nuke through Empo. Knockoff just removes items, and then Bullet Punch U-Turn is pretty darn self-explanatory. Then we have a Roselia Berry Crook here. We are just Rock Street attacks again, just Stab, Stone Edge, and Stealth Rock. Roselia Berry is to be able to either lure Diancie, stay in, EQ it so that we can get up our rocks reliably later, as well as lure one of the bigger threats to my team. Rocks are really important for Pokemon like Lopunny, for Pokemon like Scizor as we U-turn around, Pokemon like Latios, and especially with a team that has like so much like pivot momentum like ability and things like Rotom and Torn. I really need to punish those guys and keep them low, and things like Lop aren't going to be as successful if rocks aren't up. Really pressuring that Tornadus throughout the course of the game is going to be really hard for me to force progress without them. So I really want a Pokemon that can beat Diancie and get up rocks. Then we have Chestnut. We're rocking out the Spiking variant. It is Max Phys this week. We are Seed Bomb, Spikes, Leech Seed, and Spiky Shield. Leech is going to be a great way of wearing down checks. Things like Drapion that might want to come hard in. We're going to whittle them down. We also pivot into things like Rotom pretty darn well. at least she's going to whittle down a lot of our checks. The great thing about playing Gen 6 Chomp is that it can't SD scale shot up in our face. It can SD and kind of push past us, but we'll always have means of revenging Sword Stance variants in both Lopunny and Latios, which is really, really great, and allows us to play a little bit more passively around how we want to answer it in this generation, opposed into future generations where we have to be careful about letting it get up to +2, +1, or +2, +2, and just sweeping us, because it could totally do so. So that's obviously really nice. We come in, we can really just spike is the main thing. I really want to be able to spike as we do pressure DNC, wanting to come hard in, be a really aggressive play for him, and if we can catch that thing with a C-Bomb, we're in a good spot. So yeah, especially if we come in on something like Rotom, we're going to get up some spikes, which is great. And then we have a pretty fun weakness policy Trick Room Jellicent here. We're Scald, Shadow Ball, Trick Room, and Recover. We still function somewhat defensively in this matchup, checking Pokemon, soft checking Pokemon like Garchomp, soft checking Pokemon like Torn, soft checking Pokemon like Dia, always really being able to live a hit from them, Trick Room up, potentially Recover. But the weakness policy aspect of this makes it really, really difficult to switch into. We get Scald Burn or something like Drapion, especially once we lose our item, it's not going to be doing any damage to us. Volts from Rotom really just absolutely bounce off. Knockoffs from Torn, knockoffs from Empo. There's a lot of passive, super effective coverage on this 6 that can potentially proc this and let us, punch a hole early and hopefully do a little bit of damage to Sablo's team. So that's going to be the team. We can jump right into the battle itself. We are going to go ahead and lead off with our Crocodile in this matchup. Again, I really, really want to secure rocks. There is no Mega on this DNC, so if the DNC has not Mega'd yet, and something else leads, like something like a Rotom, I'm more than willing to go ahead and get up my rocks here, as there isn't much of a means of removal outside of defogging Empo, which I don't think is great here, personally. And again, I can always get them up later, again, depending. So we are going to see a Taunt Turmoil from the Torn, showing that it is a Taunt variant. It's going to be able to stop us from getting our rocks up, as it knocks off here, knocks off our Roselia Berry. I want to knock this thing off, and you're going to see a trend here. There's the first Rocky Helmet gone, which is great for our Lop. Again, one of the main pivots into it, not being able to chip us down by just switching in is great. DNC is going to come in on a knockoff, really aggressive play here from Sablo, where here's my Taunt does expire. Now, I do expect him to Mega Evolve and Protect this turn, so I want to maintain a little bit of initiative and get into my answer and be able to, react accordingly. So you're going to see the DNC Mega Evolve and Protect, and from here, even if he stays in and goes super aggressive Hidden Power Fire, I live and I can U-turn out and kind of adjust accordingly. And he obviously doesn't know if I'm Aqua, what I am, or if I'm just like Bullet Choice Band and I just knock him out from full. Like, it's a really aggressive play that he doesn't need to make. So I feel pretty comfortable going for a knockoff. Something like Torn doesn't want to switch in on a knockoff, plus a Bullet Punch. And getting rid of something's item is really valuable here. As we see Rocky Helmet number 2 gone. Another great thing for Lopunny, right? As we are going to go hard Crocodile here on either a Wisp or a Volt Switch, as a Volt Switch does come out here. The main thing is I didn't want to allow passive momentum to go into my Latios and things like that. I didn't think they would Wisp as much, because while that catches Chestnut, Latios getting in for free with just having to take a burn really isn't the worst thing in the world, and I feel like they don't want to give that thing free switch-ins. So I went to my Crocodile, and right here, again, I'm in a position where I know rocks are incredibly important to me, and Sablo knows that rocks are incredibly important for them to not go up on his side. So I'm going to make a bit of a ballsy play here. A play that could either win me the game or just completely lose me the game if he elects to stay in and just go for a Hydro Pump and kill me. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and go for a raw Earthquake, expecting that DNC to want to come in and Magic Bounce the rocks back. He's already shown that he's willing to play pretty aggressively with the DNC coming into my knockoff the turn prior. So that, again, really, really tells me that he does not want these rocks going up no matter what. He is going to go into DNC. We do get the play right, and we pick it off with a big, big EQ, which is absolutely phenomenal for us. Garchomp's going to come in next, and I know I live pretty much any hit from this thing unless it's a boosting item. It does elect a Sword Stance, but this is kind of what I was talking about in the sense of, like, yeah, SD Chomp is scary, but I always have means of revenging it afterwards. So I am just going to go ahead and get up my rocks here in this thing's face. It does pick me off with a Dragon Claw very, very comfortably. And from here, I can just go into my Latios, and I can just drop a very, very free Draco. Torn is going to come out, but, I mean, this thing's dead. 100%, 35%. I think -2 Draco did that much. So we're going to be able to knock it out here. Drapion comes out. Now, remember, I am Colberberry, so I actually feel pretty darn comfortable pivoting out. Even if he does Pursuit, I live it pretty comfortably, and I can always use this thing later, recover up on Rotom, still revenge the Garchomp, and go from there. As he does elect to go for a Toxic Spike. The T-Spikes are definitely very annoying for the team. But I am very glad I went hard Lopunny, expecting either a knockoff or a Pursuit in order to get this thing in to, again, click a button and do some damage. As Lop is going to come in right here, I am going to fake out into this Garchomp, as we do see that it is a Rough Skin Helmet variant. But again, I've knocked off all the other helmets, right? Well, Torn's dead. I've knocked off Rotom's helmet. I mean, this team doesn't particularly deal with Lopunny all too well. So I am just going to go ahead and go for an Ice Punch. He could have been Endure, and that would have sucked. but again, it's something I can adjust from. I'll still live after that and be able to pressure afterwards, as Rotom is going to come out next. Now, depending on the Rotom and how physically defensive it is, I don't actually always kill it from here, and I figured keeping Mop around was still nice because it smokes through Drapion, it smokes through Empoleon. So I go into my Latios because I know I beat this thing. He does end up going for a Wisp right here, which is completely fine with me. I'm just going to drop a big CM right here, as the Rotom is going to get a slow Volt Switch out into the Drapion. As the Drapion is going to come out, take more Rock Chip. I'm going to go ahead and take a little bit more burn. That Gen 6 burn is crazy. Sablo makes a really smart play right here. He's going to sack off the Rotom. He knows that I'm probably CM Draco, or he knows that I'm CM Draco, and it's going to kill his Drapion from there because he's not AV. So what I am going to do is I'm going to Draco, and I'm going to miss. And again, you would think like, oh no, oh, Miss Draco, he's been missing hella moves. This is a good miss. This is 100% a good miss. Because now what I can do is I can go ahead and position myself and go ahead and get up a free roost, get back up to full. The Drapion is still in range right here, and now I can play a little bit more aggressively. I know what his game plan around this thing is. I'm going to go ahead and just Calm Mind again, because again, with my Colbur, even if I get this play wrong, oh well, I'll kill you the next turn, and if I call this correctly, he goes into Rotom, and from here, I'm just going to be able to Thunderbolt and knock it out from here at +2. So, down goes the Rotom. Phenomenal position for me, off of me missing. Drapion's going to come out. Citrus Berry pops, but even after the Citrus, it's not going to be able to live a +2 Draco from 75. It's just simply not going to happen. We get down to neutral special attack, and Empoleon comes out. Now you might be thinking, oh, and just like Calm Mind up, blah, blah, blah. I don't want to. I don't want to risk getting crit. I don't want to risk this thing being weakness policy and just Thunderbolting it for chip. I'm going to go into my Scizor because I know my Scizor always beats this thing. As we do see an agility pop right here, and again, this tells me, okay, very, very potential, very big potential for it to be a weakness policy variant. As it does off a Surf, do a ton of damage. 36 is crazy damage. As I do knock it off, showing Mystic Water. So I could have probably Thunderbolt it, but it's fine. We're able to Superpower, pick it off, and win a nice 5-0 victory here over Sablo, securing our spot in the brackets, which is obviously amazing. Again, it's nice to be a good player. We obviously got pretty fortunate with our Draco miss there, but I think I played really well. I think the aggressive EQ on Diancie put me in a really great spot, and I'm very happy with this one, especially after playing kind of meh in the game prior. So definitely really happy with this one. Let's move on to our last game of pools. Alrighty, we have our last game in pools against Crystal Canyon. We're going up against a Mega Guard here. Big threat to the team, obviously, and another Thundy, which is a big threat. Excadrill actually is really obnoxious as well, especially because I'm not bringing Chestnut. Now, if Chestnut was here, it'd kind of deal with it handedly, but I think Chestnut is really bad against every other Pokemon on this team, besides maybe soft checking something like Keldeo, so I end up leaving it on the bench. Latias, again, can be a big problem. It's really one prediction on my Scizor away from absolutely kind of picking a KO versus the rest of my team pretty darn comfortably. I apologize, you can hear the dogs in the background right now, but really quick, I'm gonna show off the team we're running with today, including Big Chimecho, but we'll get there. We have a just pretty standard Lopunny here. Again, a Pokemon that quite literally can OHKO or 2-hit KO this entire team, unless it's a physically defensive Latias. Fake out, return, high jump, quick attack, makes quick light work. Then we have a Haban Berry Latios here. We're just dual stabs with Draco, Psyshock, Roost for recovery, and then Shadow Ball to hit the Gardevoir. Just kind of has good general coverage. It's a good soft check system like Keldeo, or Psyshock, so we can hit it after it Calm Minds pretty well. Shadow Ball to hit the guard as hard as possible, and Draco Haban is to deal with Latias, so we can use it as a nice lure if, you know, he's a Scarf set and feels pretty comfortable staying in and attacking us. We have an Octoberry Scizor again, pretty simple stuff. We're playing into a guard. We're Bullet Punch, U-Turn, Knock Off, and Sword Dance. Again, another Pokemon that can do really well once the likes of Excadrill are gone or chipped down range of a +2 Bullet Punch. It can kind of revenge us pretty easily otherwise. And then Scizor, or Thundurus, and really Scizor's bulky enough to live one hit from either of them, so that's obviously nice. We can put ourselves in a position after some things are chipped down to SD up and win, but really it's here to kind of pivot into guard and knock off a lot of items, be a good general nuisance, and U-turn around. Then we have a Scarf Crook here, or Knock Off, Stone Edge, Earthquake, and Stealth Rock here. Again, similar to the last few games here, but we're just a Scarf set, and instead this time, we're intent to pivot into things like Excadrill. We can Rocks up on switches, and then afterwards, it's actually pretty darn strong, this matchup, if we can click the right button. Now, there is like a little bit of 50-50 mind games between Knock Off and Earthquake, but really nothing wants to take that Earthquake once things like Lottie and Thundy are gone. EQ is actually a really free and spammable click, so that's obviously nice. We have a Leftovers Jellicent. We are pretty darn physically offensive with Nightshade, Scald, Toxic, and Recover in this one. We check things like the Extra Drill pretty well. We check really any Keldeo or Nightshade in order to kind of beat down potential Sub-Calm Mind variants, which can be pretty darn annoying, or like sub-variants in general can be really obnoxious, so we want to deal with that, obviously. And really, we're here to just Toxic, Nightshade, and again, be a big nuisance. And then lastly, the star of the show, Big Chimecho. We are max Spinef here with Psychic, Toxic, Wish, and Protect. This is going to be a nice pivot to something like Latias, unless it's like a Calm Mind variant. We actually kind of stuff it really well. If it's like a Calm Mind, like a sub CM variant, we're in a little bit of trouble, but I don't think that comes into Scizor, Crocodile, Latios, even like Lopunny. We can always kind of pivot into the thing, drop a Toxic, Wish up, or pass it around to another member on the team, and deal with it accordingly. So that's the team. Big Chimecho off the bench. This game doesn't matter in the sense that we are under brackets, but if we win, we are very likely to potentially get a bye in round 1 of brackets, which would already accomplish our goal of making it farther than last year. So we definitely want to do good here. But yeah, let's go ahead and jump right into it. We see a Gardevoir lead. Again, I'm just going to lead Lop. I want my Mega off immediately. I want to Fake Out, and I want to do a lot of damage. Guard is going to take 43. This obviously, if it's taking 43 from Fake Out, it's going to get smoked by a return. There is no switching. I'm just going to click it. Thunder comes out and just dies. Great. I'm sure you guys knew from the last time we played Thundurus, we didn't deal with that Pokemon well at all. Really did not deal with it super well. So being able to hit that thing really hard and OHKO it turn 2, incredibly valuable for us. Ditto's going to come out and threaten a revenge right here. I am just going to go into Chimecho. I know I take high jump kicks really well. I'm not super worried about a return coming out in this instance either, as I do have a return resist, and I don't have another high jump kick resist. I figured high jump kick was a little bit freer, because it also, well, I guess I have Latios too, but that guy's not going to want to take that hit. I do go on Chimecho though, as Draco comes out from Latias, as I drop a big Toxic on that thing's forehead, and it's basically neutered. It is no longer a big threat to us. I'm going to be able to Wish up here, as Extra Drill is going to come out, and again, this is completely fine. I'm back up pretty darn healthy, and even if I'm not, I've checked the thing I wanted to check. I've gotten a Toxic off in the Latias, making it immensely easier to deal with for our team, especially alongside Fake Out support, priority, and our lure, and just general bulk. So I'm going to pivot into Crocodile on this Extra Drill. I take 35 from the Earthquake after Intim. I get it right back, and there's a very free knockoff. Get rid of an item here, kind of scout and see what the initial play is. We do see Keldeo come out. I knock off a Choice Specs, which also tells me my Jellicent is going to be a very free pivot into this Pokemon right here, as Water Absorb is going to eat up that Surf, and then I believe I just drop a Toxic right here. Yep, I drop a Toxic on the Ditto coming in, which again, great. I know my Pokemon that are going to deal with this, especially something like Scizor, if a Nightshade or a, what do you call it, Toxic comes out, we catch that really well. We're going to U-turn on the Keldeo coming out, get into Latios, and from here, we're going to Side Shock, pick off the Keldeo, and we're in a great position. So much of a great position. Man, my Pulse Run was weird. I get a GG well played, a leave, not a forfeit, and I had to sit there for 300 seconds to win. Now, granted, I think I was in a position to not only win this game, but win it 6-0 like I was right here. It was a little bit annoying to have to sit there for a whole 300 seconds. I think if you're gonna say GG and, you know, forfeit early, you should just, like, forfeit, so I don't have to sit here for 300 seconds, but it's in the past. It's all good. I mean, this was back in March, which is crazy to think. It feels like it was just a couple weeks ago. Man, but regardless, we're able to move on 3-0 in pools with a 6-0, a 5-0, and I believe a 3-0 from before, putting us in a really commanding position. Now, I know that the buys weren't based off of differential, but I think it was just like all the 3-0 teams were put into like basically like a lottery, and if you got it, or if most people got it, and most people got like a buy, and we thankfully were able to get a buy. So we've already kind of accomplished our goal of making it past top 128, which we did, and we're move on immediately to top 164. We're playing against Ziff, another seasoned ORAS and Draft League player who probably understands this metagame much better than I, and he's got a really interesting team. So let's go ahead and jump into that one. Alrighty guys, here we are with our first game of brackets. I believe this is top 64 because we did get a bye immediately in round 3, which I think was, what would that be considered, top 128? So I'm pretty sure this is top 64 at the very least. No, this might be top 128. I'm not 100% sure. Regardless, we're going up against Ziff here, who is a very seasoned ORAS player. He's been around the scene for a long time. And fun fact, I think the only other time I've ever played Ziff was also in a Smogon tournament, and it was in like the Smogon Trios tournament. I played against him and I won that game, so hopefully we can keep it up. But you could see we're playing against like pretty much hard stall. The two Pokemon that were left on the bench in this match, I was able to find the match just a little bit easier this time, so we can actually look back at them. The Pokemon that were left on the bench this time were Nidoking and Aromatisse, which makes sense that they're both left. I think Nidoking kind of struggles against my team with its speeds here. Aromatisse I did kind of expect, but Escav makes a little bit more sense in hindsight as a Lottie check, and we'll kind of get into that as we look at the team, but let's go ahead and take a look, wrong one, at our builder. And you can see first up we have a pretty interesting Lopunny here. We are rocking out with High Jump Kick, Return, Toxic, and Rest. Very interesting set, where you see we're very, very bulky on the set, just due to speed tiers and how I think that Ziff will, run his team. I don't think he's going to be running a max speed Talonflame, and even if he is, right, the only thing we're risking is getting hit with a burn, but why would he burn me when he can just Gen 6 priority Gale Wings at any time and just kill me with a Brave Bird? So I'd rather actually be able to live said Brave Bird and do a lot of damage, as well as live hits from really everything on his team pretty darn comfortably. High Jump Kick and Return is always going to be really strong into the matchup. We have Pokemon like Zapdos, which are really annoying. There's always the potential of getting burned, there's the potential of T-Waves, there's the potential of Toxics and things like that. So we have Rest, plus our second member, Big Chimecho, who is literally here to play support. We're rocking it with Psychic, Recover, Heal Bell, and Healing Wish. This is going to be our main Nidoking check. It actually stuffs Nidoking pretty darn well, at least most sets of Nidoking. We can Psychic it and obviously take it out. We have Heal Bell to Heal Bell off our Lop Slash, anything else that gets burned or Toxic or T-Waved or whatever it may be, because we are playing it to stall, and Healing Wish to get something back up completely to full if need be. So I think that's great. We have one of our best Pokemon in the matchups, Big Crook here. Crook always does well into these types of builds. We are an offensive Lumberry set with Bulk Up, Stone Edge, Knock Off, and Earthquake. Pretty darn simple. This set really can punish things like Sableye pretty well. Things like Talonflame that are trying to Wisp us, we'll eat off the Wisp, kill it with a Stone Edge. We do a ton to Zapdos as well, and we're really going to be able to bully the likes of things like Deoxys and things like that. Now, obviously, Escav and Snorlax can always take a +1 hit, and Escav definitely forces us out, but getting chip on Escav is great for our Latios right here. We are weakness policy on this week, and again, hindsight, in my own build, I think I really discounted Escav in the builder. You can see we're a pretty bulky set with Side Shock, Recover, Calm Mind, and Draco with weakness policy. This is mostly to take advantage of both Sableye as a check, which I didn't think it was going to be, but regardless, we can take any hit from it really well, super effective hit, and deal with it. But as well as Aromatisse. If Aromatisse wanted to come and spit off, we can kind of Calm Mind up in its face, take a hit, get to +3, and then just Side Shock through it, which is, again, great for the rest of our team. But again, in hindsight, I think Escav is just a better check, and I probably should have a Hidden Power Fire here somewhere, maybe over Calm Mind, as I'm going to take a super effective hit, hopefully, with this kind of set. But you live and you learn. I don't think this is the best set in the matchup, but it's definitely not bad, especially if we can force chip on Escav with Crocodile. Then we have a Rocky Helmet, Jellicent. Another Pokemon that's really good in this matchup. We are Scald, Recover, Taunt, and Hex. Taunt's going to be really great into things like Snorlax in particular, as we Scald it down, whittle it down, get a burn on it maybe, and then just prevent it from resting or cursing or doing any, sort of the shenanigans that we're a little bit worried about. Same thing with Talonflame. It is a slow taunt, but being able to taunt that thing, if it is like some kind of scary bulk up variant, we should be able to taunt, Scald, Helmet it down pretty darn freely, which is obviously really nice. And then Scald plus Hex is going to be really nice in breaking down things like Sableye that check us really well otherwise. If we get a Scald burn in it, one, it's Gen 6 burn, so it's going to be doing a lot more damage. And if we can Hex it, we're going to be doing even more increased damage and chipping it down, especially if we're spreading burns on the rest of the team, which is obviously really nice. And then lastly, we have a Choice Band Scizor, where Bullet Punch, U-Turn, Quick Attack, and Knock Off. I know that CB Scizor seems like kind of odd into like Zapdos, Talonflame, but I think it's really good in everything else. And I think if I can beta Knock Off into those Pokemon, get rid of their leftovers or Helmet, and especially that, plus the rest of my offense pivoting around, I think I'll actually be in a pretty good spot, and I think it's a really cool aspect of it. Yeah, that's going to be the team. Let's go ahead and jump right into the game itself. Now, we are going to go ahead and lead off with our Jellicent in this matchup. My main idea is I really want to bait a Scald Burn on something like Sableye. Sableye is typically going to be the lead in a lot of these stall matchups, because securing that Mega Evolution is really important, especially securing no rocks is really important for this team. We're not rocks, but he doesn't know that we're not rocks Trook, and he really does not want that going up for his Talonflame and Zapdos. 100% does not want them going up. So he's going to just Mega Evolve and Wisp immediately. That's completely fine with me. I'm going to go ahead and Scald, get a burn and a crit, which is really nice. You can see 13% from that burn is really great damage, and we can kind of just pepper this thing down with hexes and really whittle it. Obviously we can't taunt it because it will just magic bounce it back. I think I Scald here expecting a potential pivot out. doesn't happen, all good, not the end of the world. I might hex one more time in order to, you know, put myself in a position where I can get a recover turn off, as his own burn is also chipping me down, obviously, but I will beat this thing 1v1 pretty darn freely, especially because it's not a toxic Sableye. Now, obviously, I could heal bell this off, and I could heal bell a toxic off, but regardless, we're fine. We're gonna go ahead and hex on a pivot out into Deoxys here. Does a decent chunk. Thankfully, it's not any like weakness policy, scariness, or anything like that. We also see that it's leftover, so I know it's not Colbur, which means my Crocodile actually smokes through it. Rocks go up here, but again, this is a great position. I get on this thing, I immediately get a bulk up off, and Sableye is the initial pivot to probably try and burn us and deal with us that way, as I do bulk up immediately. He goes into Sableye too, because again, he can't have rocks go up. He absolutely cannot have rocks go up. So I bulk up, I Earthquake, I do about 48, Wisp does miss. Now, obviously, this is really unfortunate from Zip's perspective, right? Because he doesn't know that I'm Lum. And even if I'm Lum, he would have popped that right away. But we do have our heal bell and our Trim Echo, so I went into this interaction expecting to be burned and being fine with that. As right here, I do pick it off with a knockoff, and we keep our Lum intact, which is huge. Talonflame is going to come out next, and this pretty much screams, I'm here to burn you with a Will-O-Wisp. But again, I take any hit, I'm Lum, I can pick this thing off and put myself in an incredible position, because thankfully that Escav didn't come in, probably trying to avoid taking damage, so it could check Latios. We show that we're faster, showing this is a very, very defensive, probably Fizz-Def Talonflame. And unfortunately, we miss our Stone Edge. We take a Wisp. It does go away there. We are able to heal it with a Lum, which is great. But Zip is going to be able to pivot out and save his Talonflame, because it's like, okay, I died to this, right? And Brave Bird's doing nothing. This is a +1 thing. I'm probably not invested, or he's probably not invested at all. He's going to go to Deoxys, and it's a little bit unfortunate, but I can't complain too much, right? Because my Lum wasn't popped before, right? So we actually get out of this exchange without a burn, because he's going to pivot into Deoxys and basically just sack it off. You can Stone Edge into knockoff, and something's dying right here, right? Something like Escav does not want to come in and take knockoff into EQ, depending on its set. Escav is going to come in here. I'm going to save my Crook, because it's still very, very good here at beating Zapdos, Talonflame, and even Snorlax if we get boosted up. I am going to go out into my Scizor, and this gives me a very, very free knockoff. I want to knock off on this, Zapdos, Talonflame, whatever it is. It's a very, very free one. So I'm going to go ahead and just click the button. Zapdos comes out. We do a decent chunk, showing that it is very physically defensive, though. Knock off its helmet for 36%. We're going to get into our Latios right here. As a Roost comes out, Zapdos is trying its best to stay healthy. Remember, this is also old gen Roost, so there's 16 of them. We could be a little bit more less liberal with our Roost. I'm going to Draco Meteor on the switch into Escav, and unfortunately just get Pursuit Trap. So like I said, this is and look, my weakness policy pops. I could have maybe even, like if I Calm Mind on the switch, maybe we could have pushed through and forced a little bit more damage, but again, I don't think this was the best set for me in this matchup. I think I really discounted Escav and really, really overprepared for like an Aromatisse when Escav was definitely the better check. So that's on me. I'm going to go into Scizor, and knowing that he doesn't want this knocked like at all, I am just going to go ahead and U-turn out on the Zapdos coming in. Thankfully, we don't get staticked, which is really nice. And we're going to get into a Crook right here. And again, this is time to just kind of be a nuisance. We're just going to click Stone Edge here. We get a crit. This would have 2-hit KO'd anyway, so I don't think it's that big of a deal, to be completely honest. But we get a crit right here. The reason I didn't bulk up, as we're likely going to see like some kind of U-turn into Escavalier anyways, and I don't kill it. But we actually just see a hidden power pop. That's about 40%. Escav's going to come out here. I have a free knockoff. Going to do a nice 42%. And from here, I am just going to go ahead and sack off my Latios. Hindsight, again, I probably could have EQ, but just in case that was like a max roll knockoff into a min roll EQ, I didn't want to risk it. I didn't even think it was super worth. Instead, I wanted to get into my Lopunny and, you know, secure my Mega Evolution, as I don't have Protect on this thing. And again, or Fake Out on this thing. And again, I know that sounds odd, but I figured this was just kind of my safest route. Plus, it got rid of my Latios, which I felt was more of a liability than it was something good for me at this point. So I do just click High Jump Kick. I'm able to pick that thing off. Out comes Talonflame right here. And again, this is an interesting position, right? We still have Heal Bell, we still have Healing Wish, and I know that I'm bulky enough to always take a Brave Bird from this thing, especially because it's defensive. So I'm actually going to elect to stay in and just get off a big, big return on this Talonflame. Do a nice 73%, and I'm actually going to save my Lopunny right here because I can Healing Wish it up later. Jealousy going to come out next. This will kill this thing to helmet / recoil. Crit to 39, so Jellicent absolutely walled the shit out of that Talonflame, which is obviously really nice. I'm going to get out on my Chime Echo on the Zapdos right here, as it does go ahead and click Roost. Again, this is a pretty simple play for me. I'm just going to go ahead and Healing Wish up my my Lopunny on an expected Snorlax pivot as I kind of just beat down Zapdos regardless unless it's Toxic. And if I'm Toxic and put that thing on a timer, he kind of just loses the game. So I'm going to Healing Wish up my Lop. Worst case, I would have just had to like sack off Jellicent, go into Crook from there. But from here, I'm just going to go ahead and click return. I want to cover the Zapdos coming in / I don't want to miss. And I don't want to, you know, high jump kick into a protect. I know that there's nothing the Snorlax can do to kill me unless it's Banded. And if it's Banded, I can go into Scizor, Revenge with U-turn, I can go into Crook, and probably Revenge with EQ / Knock, so I felt pretty comfortable from there, as he does click return for a nice 58%, but at this point, the game is pretty much over. I'm just gonna go ahead, click return, knock this thing out comes Zapdos, just gonna click return, gauge damage, you see it only does 44, so I'm not quite to it KOing. So from this position, I'm actually going to elect to put this thing on a timer, hit it with a Toxic, as it does Roost again, and I'm just going to go ahead and spam return from here, and hopefully pick up a W here, as we do just return, 47. Discharge is going to take out my Lopunny from here. I'm still just a Lopunny, despite how bulky, you know, the set is. We're going to go into Crocodile, feel a little crazy, you're going to go for Stone Edge. I'd say it again, probably Knock is the play. I guess I'm worried about him roosting, but not really. Knock is probably the play, but regardless, we're able to take home a win here. And again, despite the Lottie set being a little bit subpar, in my opinion, and probably not what we should have brought, I think our team overall was really well built, and I think I played this game really well. I think Crook was positioned really well and put it in a really big hole early, and when Stall loses one piece, it ends up losing a couple. So I felt pretty happy with this one, and I was glad we were able to take home a win against a very good player. And yeah, on to the next round. Alrighty, here we go with now what I believe is top 64. I'm pretty sure this is top 64. Again, I could be wrong at like the actual thing, but regardless, we're going up against Lost Memories here. And another matchup where we're playing a really fat team. Now, this obviously isn't hard stall. We see an Alomomola, Tangrowth, Charizard X, Clefable, Excadrill, Volcarona, and then other than that, on the bench, he had a Tyrantrum and a Ditto that ended up not coming. So the Ditto did play a little bit of a factor into the team, in particular things like Lopunny, but for the most part, we kind of covered everything here. And again, I was also really glad to see no Tyrantrum, because while I didn't have a bad Tyrantrum matchup per se, I didn't bring a great team into Tyrantrum. Like if it was like a Choice Band Head Smash set, if it got in on some slower things, or even just Choice Scarf, it really could have put in some work and did some damage to us. So I'm glad that that didn't come, but let's go over the team that we have here. First up, we have a Weakness Policy Crook. This is going to be our main lead, where Weakness Policy, Earthquake, Stealth Rock, Knockoff, and Taunt. Weakness Policy is just because there's a lot of passive damage that can kind of proc it, right? Not necessarily Tangrowth, because we still don't do anything back to it, but Clefable Moonblast doesn't really do any damage. Giga Drain from Volk, which I am expected, doesn't really do any damage, and Alomomola doesn't do any damage. So if we can proc, especially in like a Clefable lead, which is something I'm expecting, a big Moonblast into us, we get it to +2/+2. We either get off a crazy +2 Earthquake or Knockoff into it, or we find out if it's unaware, which is really valuable. Where Stealth Rock to get up a Rock, it's really important into a team that has both Volcarona and Charizard. Rocks are incredibly important, especially when we have great spin block and there's no defog to be found on this team. So that, wrong one. That's obviously really important. And Taunt's going to be able to, really keep those guys for like Aloe and especially Clef from recovering up and staying healthy on us, which can be really annoying. Then we have a max physically defensive Jellicent. This is pretty simple. This is going to be our main check to something like Zardex, or Scald, Taunt, Recover, Toxic. It checks Zardex, but it also checks things like Clefable. If it's like an unaware variant, and again, we'll find that hopefully early on. It also really checks things like the, Alomomola, and then we can obviously Toxic things like Zard and Volk and deal with them accordingly. We kind of need Toxic for Zard especially too, because it kind of just sets up on us otherwise, because it's so bulky and we can't burn it. Then we have a Choice Band Scizor again. Once again, I think we've brought this like 3 times now, or 2 games in a row. We're going Bullet Punch, U-turn, Quick Attack, and Knockoff. Actually, the same exact set that we brought last week. Quick Attack is going to be great for the means of revenging a really weakened Zard or a pretty weakened Volcarona. Being able to pick that thing off with a Choice Band Technician Quick Attack is obviously really nice. Bullet Punch hits things like Clefable really hard, but really this guy is here to Choice Band U-turn around. Especially on like physical walls like Tangrowth, we can maintain pretty good initiative, especially with Rocks up. We're really going to whittle this team down a lot. And things like Excadrill, which resist us, don't really resist us. And we have a Lopunny here, rocking out with a Fake Out, Frustration, high jump kick, and heal bell set. More frustration over return, just in case my opponent forgets to change, or it at least gives a little bit of a mind gain of, do they go max happiness for return or min happiness for frustration? I went min for frustration, thinking maybe he'll forget if he brings Ditto. Ditto didn't end up coming, so it really doesn't matter, to be honest. We have Fake Out, obviously, the Secure Omega, as well as pick off weakened threats like the Zard, like the Volk. A lot of this Prio is hopefully going to put us in a good spot to potentially keep those guys nice and low and revenge them, which, again, is really, really nice. And Heal Bell, again, when you're playing into Aloe, Tangrowth, Clefable, I really do expect some Wisps and or some Burns and some Toxics and some Thunder Waves to come out. We also have Pokemon like Volk that can get Flame Body Burns. We have Pokemon like Zard that very often run Will-O-Wisp variants. So I really wanted to cover for everything. Heal Bell is going to let me do so. It's also going to keep my lot from being burned or, you know, something of the sorts, which is really nice in the case that we get Flame Bodied or something like that. Then we have a Choice Specs Latios. I want you to look at my opponent's team, and the team that I mentioned, again, the two things on the bench are Tyrantrum Ditto. The Psychic resist on this team is Excadrill. So we're really here to just come in and click Specs Psychic. Now, once that Clefable goes, also the Dragon resist is Excadrill. So we can super smoke through and hopefully break with Lottie really well. We have Surf as a means of OHKOing Excadrill if we do need to, as well as doing a ridiculous amount, potentially OHKOing a lot of offensive Volcarona variants, especially after Rock's just getting smoked, which is really, really nice. And obviously we will be faster than it before it gets to the +1. And yeah, it's a decent neutral click depending on what's out and what we need to deal with. Then we have a pretty Spadef Togekiss. This is going to be our main Volk answer. Our Volk matchup is really, really rough. We are Air Slash, Thunder Wave, Aura Sphere, and Roost. Aura Sphere is in order to hit the Excadrill as hard as humanly possible, while being better neutrally into the rest of the team. We don't have Flamethrower, but I figured Aura Sphere is just a little better, because Aura Sphere also hits the Tyrantrum that was on the bench. We have Thunder Wave to slow things down, Air Slash to flinch him. And again, while we might not be able to, like, super beat Volk, if we can T-Wave it and keep it slower than our offense that can revenge it, we're going to be in a little bit better of a spot, obviously, against it. Alrighty, but that being said, though, let's jump into this one because it is a long one. Here to see, we do see a Tangrowth lead to my Crocodile. This is unfortunate. This is not the lead I wanted. I'm going to go ahead and just pivot out into Scizor immediately as we do see a Giga Drain pop. I'm going to U-turn. It's crazy. This is a max physically defensive Tangrowth, so it does not die to U-turn. This is Choice Band Adamant. Only takes 80, so it's not even close to a roll. But what I am expecting to come out here is a Hidden Power Fire or a knockoff. There's no other click. We're not going to click Giga Drain twice. We do see a Hidden Power Fire pop. And right here, this gives me a pretty free opportunity just to get up my Stealth Rock. That Tangrowth will die to knockoff, and knowing that it's regen, he's going to want to pivot out, obviously. We're going to go ahead and taunt this next turn. I don't want this Clefable to get up rocks for free, and if it ends up Moonblasting me, I'm in an even better spot, as we do see a prediction with Flamethrower, expecting my Scizor to come out, which is a little bit tough. I can't really go hard Scizor, especially because, like, Bullet Punch doesn't kill this thing from full, and it can just Flamethrower me, plus I don't know if it's Babiri or what it is, so I can't really make that pivot, and because of that, I don't even live a Moonblast anymore, so I am going to have to go ahead and pivot out. I'm going to go into Togekiss, and unfortunately get paired, or get a special attack drop immediately, which is really unfortunate. I'm going to double into my Crocodile here, expecting an Excadrill to come in, as we do get that, or obviously trying to get rid of my special attack drop, and, you know, reposition and repivot. As you do see Excadrill come out, it is leftovers. We're going to go ahead and just pop an Earthquake right here, do a lot of damage to whatever wants to come in. It is Clefable, which does show to be unaware, so that's obviously really good information to know, because now I know that I can Toxic Taunt that thing down with Jellicent, and, you know, really make it a non-factor. I am just going to Earthquake here. I expected my opponent to not try and recover, mostly due to the fact that I've shown Taunt, but they actually do end up clicking Moonlight right here, which is a little unfortunate. I was willing to stack off this Crocodile to keep that thing really low, but not the end of the world. We're going to go ahead and get out into our Togekiss right here, as this Clefable does get nice and healthy. I'm going to Thunder Wave this thing, slow it down, as it does show to be an unaware Calm Mind variant, which is even worse. Now, I do just need to whittle this thing down into range of Scizor, but I don't switch in well to +1 Clefable with Moonblast and Flamethrower, so we're going to have to be very careful about how we, you know, deal with this guy and pivot around it. We do immediately get burned with a Flamethrower, which is really going to whittle us down incredibly fast. Again, this is Gen 6 burn, so the burns are really unfortunate. We are going to see another Calm Mind pop out as I go into Crocodile here. I want to keep my Togekiss healthy to still be able to take a +1 hit from Volcarona, so I am just going to go ahead and Earthquake as they do Moonblast and pick me off here. Now, thankfully, this thing is nice and weakened. I can go into my Scizor and always threaten it out with a Bullet Punch, which is what I'm going to do right here as the Excadrill does come out. We force it out, though, which is the good thing. It's paired and at 50%, so it's really not as big of a factor anymore. I don't think it'll get the same opportunity to set up later. So you're going to Bullet Punch into the Excadrill, do 31. It shows leftovers. I'm always going to go Jellicent right here because I do not want to have my rocks go away, especially my rocker's dead. I always have to go hard Jellicent on this extra Joe, prevent the spin. We do right there. We do see rocks go up right here as I toxic, expecting the Tangrowth. So really aggressive play from my opponent. It ended up working out. The rocks are obviously really, really good here, enabled in the sense of being able to chip down that Togekiss, really opening up that Volk and making it really scary into me. So we do see the rocks go up here. I believe I double toxic though, knowing like, okay, we're not doing that twice. Yeah. So I do go ahead and just double toxic right here. I'm able to keep this thing nice and low. I go into my Togekiss in an attempt to potentially get up a Roost. We see Clefable come out, and I believe I just go for an Air Slash immediately to not let this thing recover. Para-flinch in my favor pretty well. And at this point, if I get one more, this Clefable's dead. So I am just going to Roost, expecting them to want to save it, maybe try and recover up later on... Really, I don't know. But we're going to get into our Togekiss here, as we're going to see an EQ come out from this extra this next turn, knowing that there's like no way I'm ever going... to not go Jelly, so Iron Head and EQ or Iron Head and Spin just aren't really options. Jellicent's going to go ahead and come out. Volk's going to pivot in as I do just click recover. And again, I'm in a position where like at +1, my Togekiss kind of like just dies after burn to a Flamethrower. So I kind of have to stay in and Toxic. Now the good thing is I know I eat 2 Giga Drains from full very easily, and I know that I eat a +1 Giga Drain from full. So I have 2 opportunities to Toxic, hopefully. Get this off right here. As we do see a Quiver Dance, I am going to Toxic. This does end up being Lumberry Volk, which is a bit unfortunate. But again, like I said, I do live this hit, and I can still beta recover on Alomomola. So my Jellicent isn't necessarily dead, but I need to get this thing on a timer because it's a big, big problem for me at the moment. As I am going to get the second Toxic off here, and at this point, it is time to sack Togekiss. If they do go for Giga Drain, which they do, that means I get 2 turns of Poison right here, which is also going to be very, very paramount. As you're going to see, rack up the Toxic damage and keep this thing nice and low to where I can go ahead and sack this thing off. But now from this point, after Fake Out plus 25% is more than enough to pick off Volcarona right here. You see 34, and it goes right down to 25. I guess it wasn't more than enough, but we're able to take it out regardless. Alomomola is going to come out. I'm going to get into my Jellicent because, again, I really, really want to get off this recover. Extra comes out here, and if my opponent wanted to be really aggressive and get off a spin, it would have been unfortunate, but my best play here, in my opinion, is going into Latios. The reason I'm going into Latios is because I take any EQ, and I can threaten this thing with an Oko if it tries to spin on me afterwards, with a big, big, strong Spec Surf. Obviously, I know this is Mold Breaker, it's going to do a lot of damage, but it would have killed my Jellicent. And again, my Jellicent's still very valuable. I can recover up on Aloe, and I can recover up on Clefable, and it's going to be a big nuisance for him to kill afterwards, so I'm not just going to sack it off. He does end up giving me the extra drill right here, not going into Aloe, Tangrowth. Now, to be fair, I think Tangrowth, because it's Fizz Def, it might have been 2-hit KO'd by Surf. I'm not 100% sure. I don't think so. I know Clefable definitely was. And it's kind of hard to go hard Aloe on a Latios, which is a little bit unfortunate. They're going to go into Zard right here, and again, I'm in a position where, like, okay, if you're, like, a really bulky Zard, you probably live this Spec Surf, but if I do that, I can either go into Lopunny or Scizor and revenge you with something with priority. I cannot let you set up for free with my Jellicent being so low. Thankfully, they just die, so they are a much more offensive variant, and again, that's great for me. I'm going to go ahead and pivot out in my Scizor on this Latios right here. We do get knocked off, which is really unfortunate because these U-turns are going to do much, much less damage than I'd like. We're going to go ahead, get off a big, big U-turn on this Aloe, and I'm going to get into my Latios, and I'm going to click a Spec Psychic. At this point, in my head, I win. Aloe dies, Tangrowth dies, Clefable dies. We do see a Protect pop right here this next upcoming turn. I'm trying to get some lefties, and in my head, I'm like, okay, this really does not matter. I should be fine. As we are going to see this Aloe live, it is max Spadef, and it Mirror Coats me. And the fact that that thing only takes 52, I understand Spadef, but only 52 was not something I expected. So we do force a regen pivot out right here. I am going to go ahead and just recover up with my Jellicent. And from here, I'm going to taunt the Clefable. As a Flamethrower does come out, maybe expecting my Scizor, but I can't let this thing recover. I'm just going to go ahead and drop a big Scald at this point. We do see a Scald go into Tangrowth, do a little bit of damage, and then from here, we have our Lopunny pivot. I wanted to go Lopunny here in case there was a Hidden Power Fire that came out. I figured it was actually a pretty riskless Hidden Power Fire from him, as we do see the Lopunny do so. And then from here, I do get to pick a KO. There's not really much that takes this hit, as I am going to Fake Out here. Again, hindsight, I don't think I should have faked out. Maybe, like, I was worried about High Jump Kick not killing and then, like, it getting off a hit. But even then, like, Toxic would have taken it out, would have been really low. I think I could have just High Jump Kicked, and if I High Jump Kicked there, I actually won the game. But we're going to see a Frustration pop here. I didn't want to High Jump Kick into a Protect. We've already seen Protect. And from here, I am just going to go ahead, drop another attack. Frustration does do a ton of damage. We're going to knock out this Clefable. But now Aloe is back in. This is a bit unfortunate, because you're going to see, I'm going to pivot Jellicent here on potential Protect. We do unfortunately see a Wish. That's fine. Protect pops. We're going to go ahead, get off a big recover. Our Jellicent is back to full, which means it always handles this Aloe. The issue is his Tangrowth is a big nuisance. Thankfully, we already got a Toxic on a little bit ago, or we would have gotten it right there. But it doesn't mean I'm in a great spot versus it, right? Because he's one Hidden Power Fire or Giga Drain away, depending on what I decide to pivot out of my Jellicent into, from being in a really bad position right here. So we are going to go ahead and see the Toxic pop. I'm just going to go ahead, drop a big U-turn. Again, maybe a knockoff was a better play there because I knock off lefties on this Aloe, but again, I wanted to take the KO on this Tangrowth when I could. We are going to see this Aloe go ahead and just click Protect. And again, Fake Out, it was pretty inconsequential. I guess Fake Out did put him in range of High Jump Kick if he didn't Protect, so maybe that's why we ended up doing it. But we're going to see a Wish, a Protect, and we kind of get stuck in this cycle a little bit where this thing is forced to Wish Protect spam. It's a little bit unfortunate, but I really just need to get this thing in a range of 2-hit KO, or put that Tangrowth in range of a KO to where I can High Jump Kick on a switch, 2-hit KO this thing after leftovers, and put myself in a good spot. So eventually I am going to kind of be forced to pivot out. I'm not really making much progress other than stalling out wishes, which there still is 11 of them, so it's not the best position for me. And this turn I am going to make a pretty aggressive double right here, as I'm in with my Jellicent right here on this wish. And again, in my head, I'm like, okay, he's going to go Tangrowth. He's going to be able to eat up this wish and put himself in a pretty good position. This will obviously live the U-turn from here, but what I can do is I can U-turn, do a ton of damage, 61% still, which is really nice. Get into Lopunny as I take a Hidden Power Fire, and I do take a Giga Drain from here as well, as you're going to see. And then from here, I'm going to put myself in a good position in the sense that now I can just drop a big High Jump Kick, do a lot of damage to this thing, 59, and at this point, after Rocks and after Leftovers and a Protect, he still is not out of range of a High Jump Kick or a Frustration, so I do just go ahead and click that guy right there, don't have to risk missing a High Jump Kick, and from there, the game is over, because obviously Tangrowth just isn't going to be able to do enough with Scizor coming in, U-turning. It's just unfortunately over at that point for him. So we're able to take home a nice 3-0 victory against Lost Memories here in a really long game. Another game where we're playing a really fat team. But again, I'm really happy with the team, how we played, how we built. And yeah, let's jump on to the next one. Alrighty, here we are, top 32. We're going against Scribble or Darksearch Joker. Really terrifying team that he has. We are playing yet another Mega Gardevoir, yet another Excadrill. So lots of really scary things here. Run and Wash also proved to be pretty annoying for the team in prior matchups. And that Cofagrigus is really unfortunate to run into. It is probably the best Lopunny check in the game. With Mummy, it's going to take over Scrappy after one hit, and we're always forced to switch out. So that's obviously really obnoxious. And then you see a Crobat here. And I will say, like, hindsight thing, I didn't prep super well for Crobat. My team does not have a conventional flying resist, and you'd think like I would have realized that when we played Ziff with Zapdos Talonflame Stall, but this thing is a big problem for the squad that we ended up building, and we can kind of go into the team though. Let's go ahead and take a look. As you are going to see our first set, this is going to be Lopunny. We are a Fake Out Return, High Jump Kick, and Toxic variant. Toxic is really just for that Cofagrigus. Fake Out is to secure our Mega Evolution as well as stall Sand turns and potentially, do a ton of damage, put things in range of return to High Jump Kick. Again, it's not like Cofagrigus really appreciates High Jump Kick the first time we click it. So if we can get a Toxic on it, High Jump Kick it, prevent it from pain splitting up maybe, then hopefully we'll be in an okay spot with Lopunny, but it really depends on how we're positioning it. We have an Akaberry Scizor here, and it's going to be our main check to something like Gardevoir. We are Bullet Punch, U-turn, Knockoff, and Superpower. Superpower is going to be a great means of absolutely OHKOing Tyranitar and Excadrill, which is really nice. Knockoff removes items, U-turn grabs us some momentum, and Bullet Punch is a great revenge cool, especially for that Gardevoir. Then we have a Colbur-Berry Jellicent. We're very physically defensive. We're Scald, Psychic, Recover, and Hex. I forgot to mention the two things on the bench this week for my opponent were Trevenant and Toxicroak. The reason we have Psychic is solely for Toxicroak. It was actually a really big annoyance for the team to switch into, and being able to hit that thing with a Psychic, be Colbur-Berry in case it's like Dark Pulse or something of the sorts, was obviously, pretty nice. Then we have a physically defensive Chestnut. This is going to be our main check to the Sand offense. We are Seed Bomb, Spikes, Drain Punch, and Leech Seed. Sorry. Max physically defensive this week. Again, a little bit fodder for the Crobat, but if we can Leech Seed that thing, whittle it down, as well as give ourselves a little bit of health after whatever else has to take a Brave Bird after, that's going to be really nice. So I really like the spiking aspect of that guy. And then we have Choice Scarf Crocodile here. We're in 10 this week just to take hits from Extra a little bit better, because Extra really, really worries me, especially if Chestnuts gets whittled down, / we have to sack it, / it just gets picked off by a random aerial ace. I liked having an in-10 Croak to be able to pivot into that. We do take 2 weak Qs. We are Earthquake, Knock Off, Crunch, and Stone Edge. Crunch is just in case we spread a bunch of knocks and kind of remove items with guys like Scizor or guys like Crocodile, or items just get consumed. Crunch is a little bit more consistent damage output, especially if I need to lock in front of like a Gardevoir or something like that, or if there's a Gardevoir in the back, that knockoff won't kill because it's holding a Mega Stone that I can't knock off. And then lastly, we have a Calm Mind, 3 attacks Latios. I think it's a pretty good Pokemon in kind of breaking through the team a little bit. We are Psychic, Surf, Shadow Ball, and Calm Mind. If we can position ourselves well, hopefully we can do a little bit of damage. We're Colbur Berry for that T-Tar for pursuits and crunches, and hopefully +1 Surfs can do enough damage to that guy to really, really whittle it down and eliminate that sand aspect. Alrighty, that being said, let's go ahead and jump right into it. You see, immediately we are going to lead it with our Choice Scarf Crook. I think it leads well into a lot. We're going to see a Crobat lead immediately, as we do see a hard pivot out into Rotom. I'm just going to drop a knockoff. I want to remove an item, whittle something down. That Rotom does reveal to be Rocky Helmet, so that's obviously great for us. Getting rid of that early is always going to be a nice thing when you have guys like Scizor and Lot. Pain Split is going to pop, immediately get that guy back to full, though. Unfortunately, Rotom has low HP stat, Chestnut, we're obviously max HP, pretty bulky. So that damage we did is basically erased, but on the bright side, we do get a potential free spike right here, as Crobat is going to come hard back out. And this is where I kind of realized, I was like, oh shit, man. I do not deal with Crobat. Like, I don't have great switches to Crobat. I'm going to go into my Latios right here. And again, hindsight, just go into Jellicent. Big U-turn pops right here. Maybe I was expecting some kind of defog and I wanted to offensively position on the defog. But getting into Jellicent was probably my best play right here, because I can at least just throw off a Scald. There's no Toxicroak, something can get burned and I can play a little bit faster that way. Now my Latios is at 47% and the T-Tar comes in. So I can't even use this as like I get in for free on something. I Calm Mind, T-Tar comes in, I surf and chip it down like I wanted to. Now I just have to surf and it's not going to do much. This is a T-Tar in the sand. Only 30% is pretty unfortunate. We do see a Pursuit pop, and that's why I didn't want to switch there, because it just would have stacked my Latios for no reason. So I'm going to surf again, do about 30%, put this thing in range, as he does elect to get up Stealth Rock. So in my head, I'm like, okay, this is pretty cool. What I think I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and drop a Shadow Ball, expecting maybe a potential guard to switch in. Or something like a, I guess it would just be guard, just to kind of chip it down, put it in range, especially because I don't think he wants to sack his sand right here. But he does like sacking his sand. And again, hindsight, I think this is me being tilted and overplaying, because why would we go hard into Gardevoir just to take a bunch of damage for no reason when my switch into Hidden Power will fire away from losing? I think it was a little bit of an overplay by me, and I get punished. And now the sand does get to stay. I don't get rid of the sand. I'm going to play a little bit aggressively here, and I am going to say, okay, now there's no reason for him to sack the sand, because he has a great switch into this Pokemon. I'm going to Mega Evolve and immediately Toxic into this Cofagrigus, chip it down with a little bit of poison, get out into my Chestnut, and go ahead and just try and get up another spike. Psychic is unfortunately going to pop again. Didn't really count for the mid-ground. It's a little bit unfortunate. Get up my second spike, and then T-Spikes go up. And at this point, I'm thinking, oh shit, I'm screwed. That Crobat looks immensely more threatening now that that T-Spike is up, because Pokemon like Jellicent aren't going to be able to outlast, especially if he catches me with a U-turn once. I'm going to be in a terrible position from there. So I do get into my Crocodile right here. I believe I do just click Stone Edge. It's going to do a decent amount to something like Rotom coming in, except I lied. It only did 24%. Right here, I am kind of forced to go Scizor, and again, I don't have a Latios anymore that could pivot into this thing. I don't have really anything. As right here, I am just going to click a U-turn on this Scizor, or on this Rotom, as it goes ahead and it clicks double foul play, chips me down. My Lot comes in, and it's poisoned, and I'm going to go ahead and just click High Jump Kick. Again, I don't think that the Crobat's going to come in and risk taking a return and just getting bopped because of how good it is. I can click High Jump Kick and go ahead and pick this thing off, as I am going to go ahead and miss. But again, I want to reiterate, why am I not returning there, right? Obviously, it catches the Crobat coming in, but after Spike, I kill that thing with a return. So yes, I missed High Jump Kick here, but there's no reason to click High Jump Kick here. Again, I think I was just all in my fucking head this game, man. There's no reason to not click return there. There's no normal resist outside of Excadrill, which gets outsped and bopped, and then Tyranitar, who dies to spikes on entry. So why would I not click return there? I mean, even if the T-Tar comes in, gets sacked on entry, I just High Jump Kick into nothing, and the same thing happens. It's just a really, really frustrating really frustrating one for me. And again, hindsight, I am going to die to Rocky Helmet here. I would die to Poison anyways. This is Scarf Crobat, and I think the fact that it was meant I kind of lost this game regardless from this point, right? I'm going to take a U-turn here, and I'm like, oh shit, well, I lose. Spikes are going to come in. I get the T-Tar as a nice little consolation prize. Take more poison. Crobat's going to come out. I am going to go Jellicent, but again, I'm in a position where, like, just U-turn, right? And because it's going to chip down my Jellicent, I'm going to get poisoned. Something's going to come in that smokes Jellicent, or whatever's in the back, like this Gardevoir. Gardevoir's going to come in. It's going to Mega Evolve. It's going to pick me off with a Hyper Voice. Crit did not matter, I promise you. And then from here, I mean, like, I can get a little bit of diff and a consolation prize of getting a Bullet Punch here, which is obviously really nice, but I don't have any more switches to Rocks, which means that there is no real end game at this point. EQ kills everything on my team. Life Orb Exeggutor comes out. Again, I can crunch and knock off and knock this thing out. But we just kind of reduce this to a 2-0 as I do get taken out via poison. And a really frustrating year for me. I was really upset with the luck after this game, I remember, and like things not going my way. But in hindsight, I mean, like an hour after this game, I went back and rewatched it. Because I think that's something important to do, too. It's like, even if you're not uploading a video on it later, like, go back and watch your games when you lose and get your ass beat. Like, this is a 2-0, but I got smoked. Go back and watch your games and look at them through a lens of, like, what can I do better? Because I was super mad after this game. I was like, oh, I got super unlucky. I missed my jump kick, blah, 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 blah. But none of it mattered. I got outbuilt this game. I didn't have enough for Crobat. I got outbuilt and I just played really over aggressively. My Latios was basically dead from like turn 3 of the game for no reason. Had no flying resist on the team. I didn't account for T-Spikes again, and that was something that was really troubling. And my game against Sablo didn't end up mattering because they went up pretty late. But I should have recognized after that game, like, hey, no ground of poison. Your team's pretty T-Spike weak. Guys like Jellicent, Mop, Chestnut, Croak, they all hate T-Spike being up. Like, they hate T-Spike being up, so it was on me. I get, like, high jump kicking into the Coffee isn't missing. Like, that's on me. So, it's a really frustrating way to end the tournament because I think up to this point, I had played really well. I beat 2 players who I consider better than me in ORAS, in Ziff and Sablo. I played really well in pools despite maybe not the highest quality of games. I won, you know, like 3-0 and 6-0 in those ones. And then in my last game against Lost Memories, I don't know who they are, but like it was a good game. They had a good team, and I think I played and prepped really well. Just sometimes you have a shitty game like this, and it sucks when it's in top 32 of a tournament, and you could have moved on to top 16, but what can you do? Dark Joker was a really nice guy, or Scribble. He was a really nice guy too. If I was him on the other side, I would have been like, hey, shut the fuck up, you guys smoked. But he was very nice about it. He knew that I was obviously tilted, and I kind of told him after, I was like, hey, I was kind of salty in the game. Like, I wasn't like rude to him, but I was like, hey, I was salty in the game, but I just want to let you know, like, hindsight, it didn't matter. You kind of smoked me. Like, very well played. So, big shouts to him. I'm not sure how far he went on in the tournament. I know he at least went to top 16. I believe the tournament is in semifinals right now. I think my buddy Darkrai's in semifinals. So I had a fun run. And again, I set out to do better than I did last time. And I did, which is a good thing, right? Improvement. This is by far my weakest format in draft. I feel much more comfortable in every other generation after this. So this being, I think, one of my farthest Smogon tournament like runs ever is something I'm really proud of. So regardless of a shitty end, you know, I was pretty happy with it. If you guys did enjoy this type of movie video, let me know. We did the scripted intro. Big shouts to Kurt, by the way, for editing that for me. Because I have so much that I have Sunny doing. I was like, hey, Kurt, you want to step in and do it? He freaking killed it. It looked awesome. Let me know if you guys like the what do you call it? Like the edited out intros, or if you guys would like to see like a tournament run that's fully edited out. I still really like commentating over these games because I think I'm good at commentating over games and kind of talking about what I did good, what I did wrong. But yeah, I'm not opposed to, you know, doing it more scripted for the whole way, or just keeping with the intros, or going back to the old way of just being like, this is my team, let's look at the games kind of thing. But yeah, again, I appreciate y'all watching. Drop a like if you did enjoy. It's a long one. Sub if you're new. I appreciate it. I'll see y'all next time. Later.